Well, now is the time for Philadelphia to get back in the World Series. Connor Thomas has some thoughts.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, Locked On Phillies crossover. This is a podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball and the Philadelphia Phillies. No matter which feed you're listening to this on right now, we're going to have a good time because I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been podcasting for, a dozen years or so, but this is my sixth season we're starting up here at the Locked On Podcast Network. And this guy right here is my guest who was supposed to be my guest last week. Then we had technical difficulties, but here we are. Sign in, please, mystery guest.
How we doing? I'm Connor Thomas, host of Locked On Phillies. I'm so glad to be with you, Sully. The technical difficulties aside, there's a lot to talk about with what the Phillies have done and are going to do.
And may continue to do if that sentence made any grammatical sense. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off of your first purchase. And before we dive face first into some not just Phillies talk, but National League East talk, I want to go through the trivia question because yesterday's show, I talked all about the knuckleball. I said the knuckleball could be what saves baseball. We need ace pitchers to go long, to throw a lot of innings and not break down. Why not a knuckleballer? Those guys, I'm convinced Charlie Huff is still pitching somewhere, that they just keep on going and going. And one of the knuckleballers that I brought up was Gene Bearden, who had a nice career. And I said, what significant accomplishment did Gene Bearden do that hasn't been done since? Do you know what it is, Connor Thomas? Knuckleballer Gene Bearden did something in his career, and nobody's done it since.
It's got to be a longevity thing. I'm thinking number of starts or number of innings. It might have been the amount of innings he cleared, but I don't have a number to put on it.
And you know what's so funny? So many people, including my dear friend Marcel out there in Switzerland, he said he shot in the dark. He started both games of a doubleheader. He said he got 2 complete games in one day. Everyone was throwing guesses like that, but Scott Horstmeyer, who's in Everyday Sully, got it correct. He was the last pitcher to throw a clinching World Series pitch for a Cleveland franchise. He was the pitcher on the mound. They brought him out of the bullpen to get the save in Game 6 of the 1948 World Series. The last time Cleveland had a World Series winner, Gene Bearden clinched it.
I'll tell you what, listen, man, back in 2016, they thought they were right there, and then Jason Hayward gave the speech, and the next thing you know, it's only Gene Bearden.
Well, yeah, the only 2 teams have lost Game 7 of the World Series in extra innings in the wild card era, both of them Cleveland teams. However, by the way, that team in 1948 was the first integrated team to ever win the World Series. Larry Doby and Satchel Paige were both on that team, and they beat the Braves to win that World Series. To give you an idea how long it's been, they beat the Boston Braves. They won their last World Series in Boston. The Braves have won World Series in Milwaukee and Atlanta since then. That's right. Milwaukee has a more recent World Series winner than Cleveland does.
Oof, that's tough to hear for the Cleveland fans, but hey, the Indians are rebuilding-ish right now. Maybe they'll find one.
Guardians.
My apologies.
I know I'm being a dead horse here, but I used to when people would go on, especially a lot of Cleveland fans who didn't want to change the Wahoo hat and the name, I kept saying it hasn't exactly been a good luck charm.
No, it hasn't. And you know what? Honestly, in my defense, I'm a big Major League guy, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time. So it's a hard name to kick, but I got
They
it.
didn't
Guardians.
even win the World Series in the Major League movies. Serrano was doing voodoo magic. Fine, but we can't have him win the World Series. That's science fiction.
Yes, it
But
is.
the Phillies have won 2 World Series since then. Got to bring it back to the Phils. And really, the Phillies were one rally in Game 7 away from making it back-to-back pennants. When they, I don't know if you heard this, but lost to the Diamondbacks. I don't know if maybe you pulled the Men in Black and flashed your mind there. But the Philadelphia Phillies are going to go into the 2024 season, in my humble opinion, as one of the elite teams in the National League. And when you consider what the regular season and the playoffs have become, they're certainly good enough to make the playoffs, which is good enough for me. So I happen to think the Phillies have had a very good offseason. But Connor, you're right there in the heart of Phillydom. Tell me a little bit about, give me the pulse of Phillies fans right now about how they feel about this offseason and going into a chance to, in their mind, hopefully make it 3 straight trips to the NLCS.
So there's a weird balance right now. Some of the fan base is upset that they're quote unquote running it back, which basically means not making big splashy moves this offseason to add players to the team we're not familiar with. And then I think there's another sector of the fan base that understands this team has been really good and really close for the past 2 years. You can argue, and I have, that they have been the most successful National League franchise over the past 2 seasons. No team has had more postseason success than the Phillies. So the look at the offseason is basically, are you comfortable with where the team is at and just think they need a little luck, a little more clutch performance to break their way? Or do you think they need to go above and beyond to get to where they want to go? And that's the split in the Philadelphia Phillies fan base right now. Are you comfortable with the team that almost made it and can get over the hump? Or do you think that to get over that speed bump that's in their way, they need a little extra gas from other signings? And it's a big argument right now, but I think they've had a great offseason.
Well, let me, first of all, I am not dumb enough to pick a fight with anyone from Philadelphia, but yeah, it's hard for me to get on a ownership that has brought in Bryce Harper, that has brought in Trey Turner, that has brought in some big, I mean, Real Muto, whatever you think about what he's done with the team, he was a big-time acquisition. You know, Wheeler was a big-time acquisition. Taijuan Walker was a big-time acquisition. They've made a lot of acquisitions, and they did a huge, huge move to help their bullpen this offseason. That is, they let Craig Kimbrell go, which he will go and pile up a bunch of saves in Baltimore and then drive everyone crazy in the postseason there. I think that it's pretty greedy to say, oh, we got to get another big shiny piece when this is the ownership that bought out Bryce Harper's prime. And by the way, especially since he's now putting a first baseman's mitt on, he is increasing his value and allowing them to make the outfield the way they want it to be. And maybe say, Schwarber, sit your butt down at DH where you belong. Lead off with a sub 200 batting average, which nobody will have a problem with because he does everything else so beautifully. And let's hope that you get a better season out of Trey Turner. If you get Trey Turner back to being the Trey Turner he was in Washington and Los Angeles, that's like making an acquisition.
No, absolutely. And so is getting Bryce Harper back to the guy that you think he's going to be, because remember, Bryce Harper missed a month and a half with that Tommy John recovery. And then when he came back, he wasn't quite himself for the next month and a half after that. So let's just call it 3 months without regular Bryce Harper, 4 months without regular Trey Turner. That's the thing. And fans get caught up in this all the time. They see the same roster and they think it's the same result. But you have to look at the way that these players played, and you have to know that there's a better version of Trey Turner out there. There's a better version of Bryce Harper out there, and you have more on this team than what you had for the first half of the 2023 season.
Hey, fans of daily fantasy sports, do I have a place for you? Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. This isn't you playing thousands of other players. You can pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection and watch the winnings roll in. Football season is over, but the action on the floor is heating up. With college basketball taking over the next month, there's no shortage of high-stake tournaments. Turn your hoops knowledge into some serious cash. You want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Hill or Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries of some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. I'm going to play this week, and I expect Devin Booker to give me more than 30 points and Jason Tatum of my Celtics to pull down 10 rebounds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a deposit match up to $100. Once again, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. You know what? It's that easy. Hey, you all know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendar for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 4 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Not sure what it is Hawaii time, for the best Major League Baseball season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. That's March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, not actually Eastern Standard Time. That's Eastern Daylight Time. Be the first to get local insight from MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Locked On Sports Today, streaming channel on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's right. We're in daylight. It's not standard time.
100%, and I'm so excited about that. When I see it getting light out later, I know that means Phillies baseball is right around the corner.
Okay, let's not bury the lead here, folks. The best thing that the Phillies did is they wrapped up Aaron Nola and Zack Wheeler. Now, we have maybe I'm being a hypocrite here, because we have seen every ace fall from the sky. There's both Cy Young Award winners from last year probably won't be active on opening day, because we're not sure what Garrett Cole is. But once you go in the tube, it's not like, hey, you're ready to go. And Blake Snell, who we'll get to in a second, isn't signed as of this recording, and there's no way he's going to be pitching at full strength in 2 weeks. But that being said, the Phillies have two of the best pitchers in baseball in their starting rotation with Nola and Wheeler, and they know they're going to get the rest of their prime pitching in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Here's the tough balance, right? Because you know how tough Philadelphia is as a town. You know how focused this fan base is on their team. And when you re-sign guys like they did with Aaron Nola, when you give an extension to someone like Zack Wheeler, it's a great move for the franchise. It's very difficult to convince the fan base that those are big moves, because big moves feel like new names. But what people don't realize as much as I think they should is that bringing back guys like Wheeler and Nola, they keep your organization competitive to the level that they have been, which is, if I can remind people, an NL pennant in 2022 and a World Series appearance. And in 2023, a couple outs away from another NL pennant. So those are huge moves. And when you bring up like Blake Snell, not signed, and you look at Garrett Cole, currently injured to some extent, we'll figure out how much, it makes you value how durable Nola and Wheeler have been and how important they can be healthy to this franchise. I love the moves.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, why not Snell? I mean, he's probably not going to sign with the Yankees because of their tax situation. He's probably not going to sign with Los Angeles for their tax situation. San Francisco to me seems like the most obvious landing spot in so many ways, worked well with Bob Melvin's pitcher's ballpark. Add another pitcher like that, they're big contenders. He claims he wants to go to Anaheim. I don't know why. Maybe he wants to go back to San Diego. There's worse place to be a millionaire. If you're the Phillies and say, hey, if no one's going to sign this guy, it's nice to have a defending Cy Young Award winner be your number 3 starter. And, have Taijuan Walker or Suarez or Sanchez. They're your 4 or 5 swing guys on this team. Why not just say, hey, let's sign him to a shorter term deal and just go all out? And by the way, for the Phillies fans, to get on the point that you made, who may not be excited about Aaron Nola signing a contract, how about if he signed with Atlanta?
Right.
How about if he signed with the Mets? What are you thinking now? What are you thinking?
You're thinking you're at a big disadvantage in the division. So that's the other part of it. Who could have him is very important as a part of the conversation. Now, the Blake Snell thing for the Phillies is interesting because with the Zack Wheeler extension, they're almost guaranteed to reach the highest threshold of the luxury tax, not this year, but next year when the extension kicks in.
Right.
And also, after the 2025 season, so in 2 years from now, you're losing Kyle Schwarber contract-wise, you're losing JT Realmuto contract-wise. They've already tried this offseason to feel around about Nick Castellanos and what his trade value could be. So you've put yourself with the Wheeler extension and the Nola 7-year contract into an area where it's going to be harder to pay guys long-term. That's why I don't think Snell is a realistic option for the Phillies, simply because they're going to have such a hard time already based on their payroll to pay guys to build this roster any further. It's hard to convince the ownership and to do it as Dave Dombrowski, the president of baseball operations, or Sam Fold, the GM, to say, hey, we're just going to go deeper into the luxury tax. We're going to cost you more money, and we're just going to throw money at this guy and not give ourselves a chance to completely build the rest of the roster. I just think they put all their eggs in a different basket, and that makes them almost unable to sign Blake Snell.
How dare you be so logical? I was treating this like it was fantasy baseball here. You're 100% right, which is one of the reasons why I think that he should just be calling San Francisco every hour on the hour. Say, come on, let's work something out. Because the Yankees have made it clear they're not going to sign him. And so I just was thinking if he was, but along what you're saying, if he was amenable or if Montgomery was available, or to a lesser extent, Mr. No-Hitter Lorenzen is available to a short-term deal. By the way, Michael Lorenzen was the only person last year with a no-hitter and a save. That's something to share with your loved ones.
File it away.
Yeah, file that away for a future podcast trivia question. But if they could get him to a short-term deal, I don't know. Part of me thinks it would be you're going all in, and you're going all in with a chance to have this Phillies team be a World Series champion. Because you look at, we all know Los Angeles is going to win 100 games every year, but we've discovered also that the difference between winning 100 games and 90 games is nothing. Just punch your ticket. There's no difference in so many ways. LA. I think San Francisco is going to be competitive. I think the Phillies are going to be competitive. I think Atlanta is going to be competitive. An interesting fact, you may not know this, but a team has to come out of the Central.
That's true.
Yeah, that's part of the collective bargaining agreement, that the Central has to have a team. And we were talking in our Lockdown House meeting earlier today with Ethan Smith for Lockdown Pirates. We said there's a chance that all the teams could finish 82-80. And it's going to be a mid-80 win team is going to win that division. Philadelphia, with their pitching staff, with their bats, and with their postseason experience, I put them right front and center amongst anybody to win the National League pennant.
They've got to be, partially because of their postseason success, but also I think part of the issue too is this market, this fan base here in Philadelphia is so focused on we're the best, right? And sometimes that can be a negative thing. because you've proven, if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, you don't have to win the division. You just have to, like we were talking about, punch your ticket, find your way to the dance, and then you'll prove that you're a great postseason team. But I think there's this focus on taking down the juggernaut Braves that almost make you too ambitious with what this team should be. Ultimately, if I had asked you, and Sully, you're an unbiased third party, so Phillies fans will love to hear this. Who's been the better team the past 2 years when it comes to overall success? Not regular season success, not 100 game winners, but who's gotten closest to the mountaintop? Hasn't it been the Phillies?
You only remember what happens in October.
Right.
No one's going to remember that a couple of years ago, the Dodgers had their single greatest regular season in their history. All they remember is they lost to the Padres and a goose landed on the field.
Yeah,
the Phillies beat a far superior regular season team against Atlanta in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And then wound up, and then last year as well, getting into when everybody and their cow thought it was going to be a Braves, probably the Braves were the team that everyone was picking. And Philadelphia beat them in 4. Ask a Brave fan. And of course, which Brave team is going to be the most embraced when you look at the 2021, 2022, 2023 season? The 2021 team was by far the worst. They didn't have Acuna on the active roster.
Right.
I think I played 6 games in right field for the 2021 Braves. But
And yet they won.
That's the team that they're going to hold to their bosom. And that's an absolute surefire bet that for Braves fans, that's the team they're going to love. And speaking of bets.
Well, I mean, if you really need a safe bet, you're going to go with the greatest way to get tickets last minute, or FanDuel. We'll go with FanDuel.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button. I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Game time. You clicked. Yeah, I clicked on the wrong one.
Both are good bets. FanDuel's a great bet. And also, if you're sitting there waiting for tickets last minute, the best bet is Game Time. I mean, they've got all these things you need to secure your best possible experience going to games. They've got great things like you can view the view from your seat before you actually buy the tickets. You get all the prices roped in so you don't get smashed by last minute fees. They've got great deals last second, flash deals, zone deals. So you pick the section and they'll tell you the best seat and row. All of this is great. And you want to know the best part? Let's say you go on one of those competitive apps that are nowhere near as good as Game Time, and you find a deal and you say, hey, this looks better. Game Time, with their Game Time guarantee, will credit you 110% of the difference right to your account. Why would you go anywhere else for Game Time? You might think we're just talking sports. No, concert, theater, music, all of this type of
comedy.
Comedy, exactly. I know, big comedy guys here, and this is a big time app that helps you with all of the tickets to where you need to go. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And a reminder that Locked On has the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And it's available on the Amazon Fire TV on the free TV channels app, the Fire TV channels app. Say that 3 times fast. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fires TV channel app. I was thinking about this when you were talking about Phillies fans embracing their team. One thing that I think Phillies fans have to realize that this team will have been together for 3 and probably 4 years. So you have a chunk, you have basically a presidential term that you could hold this team to your bosom, that you could say, these are our guys. This is my team. And I think that's when you consider the Phillies in their history have won a pair of World Series, 80 and 08.
Right.
And by the way, of those Phillies teams, 08 is the most beloved because they won it all. The 11 team was heads and shoulders the best team of them all.
Unbelievable.
Wasn't even close.
Mm-hmm.
But the team that won was '08, and so that's the team that did victory laps from now to eternity. Roy Halladay, may rest in peace, never got to play in the World Series, much less win a ring. This team, if they win, I think can sit alongside those two teams as a squad filled with players that you associate with the Phillies, filled with players who weren't just there briefly. Look, at the '93 team was fun when they got to the World Series, but a lot of those guys were in and out fast. So there were a lot of transit. Yes, there was Lenny Dykstra and a couple of the people who were there for a bunch of years, but there was a lot of Incavillas and I guess Darren Dalton was on that team. But yeah, there were some transient Phillies on that team, and that was a weird sort of everything came together at once. And rub it in Braves fans' faces. That was the best Brave team of all the Bobby Cox Braves teams. And they just, they clashed with the Giants until the last day of the season, and then they stepped on a rake against the Phillies. This Phillies team has a chance to join the all-time beloved Phillies squads.
Yeah, it's almost like the Braves should stop being so good at baseball, because every time they are, there's a Phillies team who's not as good in the regular season that takes them out. But you're 100% right. And here's where the fun dynamic comes in. Bryce Harper, I hate to make it an individual thing, because if this Phillies team wins a World Series, it'll be for all the 26 players on the opening day roster and all the guys who get added later. But ultimately, it will be seen as Bryce Harper's championship and his crowning achievement since coming here as a free agent. And the fun thing about that is it's the only thing he has left to accomplish. Mm-hmm. He's won an MVP here. He's won
one in Washington. Yes, he's won two.
Yeah,
so
right.
One in Philly, yeah.
But he's got the one here, the first one since you had that J-Roll, Ryan Howard era where they were winning them. He's basically brought in all the players that came here through free agency and convinced them to come here. And he's also been a tough guy. He came back from the thumb issue when Blake Snell hit him with the up and in pitch. He came back from Tommy John surgery faster than anyone. So as much as it'll be a team achievement if they win the World Series, it'll also be a crowning achievement of Bryce Harper's decision to spend his career here and to choose Philadelphia. And I'm excited that that's a possibility again this year.
Yeah, and it would make this a completely, no matter what happens the rest of his career, a completely successful free agent signing. And of course, what happened his first year in Philadelphia, the team he left won it all. So there was a lot of pressure on him to be like, okay, you better not look dumb on this signing. And that's one reason why I say they should just completely go for it. By the way, I forgot that Snell was the one who hit him. Maybe that's why they shouldn't sign him. By the way, just two quick things. I want to thank all the Philly fans who watched my video where I was wandering around Philadelphia, going to all the places that the Phillies never won a World Series, including the Baker Bowl and Connie Mack Stadium. For whatever reason, that video has got a lot of play. It's been pushed around, and has literally the comments are now in triple digits, which I love. Stephen Gray commented, because I walked from where the Baker Bowl was to where Shibe Park / Connie Mack Stadium was. I wanted to get a sense of how close they were as I walked that way. And he said, "You walked from 15th and Lehigh to 21st and Lehigh? How many armed guards did you have?" Well, let me just tell you something. People fear me. I just permeate fear when I walk down the street. So no one bothered me. Actually, nobody did bother me. I walked down the street and I shot my video in both those places, and it was fine. But yeah, there was they're very close to each other to have two ballparks that close to each other. But it's now a mega church on the spot of where Connie Mack Stadium was.
Yeah, listen, I'm on 5th and Girard right now, so I'm not too far of distance from where you took your walk. And it's honestly wild looking out over the landscape of the city where those stadiums used to be and how they used to just fill in with the houses. It would have been row homes at the time and everything around there. It's really cool to know the history. And this is a city, I think why that video did so well, Sully, is because we're a very parochial city and we love Philadelphia and the people from here. And being a Northeast guy yourself, how that is in this area.
Oh, yeah.
That's also why this is such a tough city to really satiate when it comes to what you can produce. And that's why the only thing that'll do for Philadelphia Phillies fans is seeing a banner raised for the World Series and that trophy back here in Philly.
All right. Well, that's going to bring us to today's trivia question. I guarantee you know this, and maybe a lot of Phillies fans know this. In the entire history of the Phillies, and since they started handing out this award, who is the only Philly manager to win Manager of the Year?
Wow, you know what?
Don't answer it. Don't answer it. Don't answer it. Don't answer it, Connor. Put it in your comments. People listening, put it in the comments. I better end this show fast because Connor Thomas doesn't understand the concept of trivia. So we'll talk about it afterwards when I hit there. But hey, Connor Thomas, where can people listen to your show?
Oh, listen, Locked On Phillies. You can subscribe to us on YouTube at Locked On Phillies, the channel on Twitter at LO_Phillies, and you can find my stuff personally at Connor Thomas 975.
And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Feeling the love that you can only get in Philadelphia. With Connor Thomas of Locked On Phillies, this has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Phillies crossover. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. All right, Connor, I will tell you.
All right,
the answer to the trivia question is